Well, hi everybody. This is Tim Boss with FinancialCyclesWeekly.com. Thanks so much for joining us for our webinar today. We're calling this Profits in the Shadows, how you can prepare for the April 29th solar eclipse. And of course, we're talking about shadows because eclipses cast shadows, and that's how we find out what they're going to do and what's going to impact us in the markets and us as individual traders. So if you have heard that there's a big solar eclipse coming up, and there is one, but if you're not sure what that actually means for your personal trading, then I think you're in the right place here with us here today. During our time together, during this next little bit, you're going to learn why eclipses are important for us as traders. You'll discover what makes this particular eclipse so special. And you'll also find out what its biggest effects are likely to be, both in the markets and in other areas as well. And of course, we're going to give you a specific eclipse trading strategy today. One that you can apply not only to this solar eclipse that we have coming up here on April 29th, but to future solar eclipses as well. So you may want to be sure you can take notes on that section of our presentation here today, because it's time-tested information that I think you'll find very, very valuable. Now, in addition to this, you're also going to get a free gift at the end of this session. So be sure to stick with us for the duration there. We want to make sure that you can connect with that. And then also we're going to spend just a couple of minutes at the end talking about some special offers and additional resources that are available to you to help you profit even more, not only from this eclipse coming up, but from your trading in general and specifically from your use of astrology in the markets. So stick around. I think you're going to find all this very, very informative, extremely useful information. Now, I've been looking at our sign-up list here, and we've got a huge crowd here today. Very, very happy to see that happening with us here. Glad we have had room for everybody so far. I see some people are still joining us at this moment. And you know, I also recognize that a number of familiar names, or at least the email addresses look familiar from the sign-ups here, but also some new folks it looks like. So just in case that you and I have not yet met, my name is Tim Boss, and this is my personal private email address, tim@timboss.com. If you need to contact me about anything we talk about today or anything else that concerns you, please feel free to send me an email. I have to give you a warning with that. However, I get between 400 and 500 emails a day, so sometimes things get lost in the shuffle a little bit. I do try to answer them all, but it may take a day or two before I get back to you. If it's urgent, please put something like urgent and put something in the subject line that says was on your webinar or something like that. And I wanted to let you know too about a little about my background here, because I think that's helpful as we begin our time together to know what perspective I bring to this whole situation. I've had over 45 years experience now in astrology and the markets, and actually I came to astrology before I got involved with the markets. For the last 26 years now, I think it is. We've been publishing FinancialCyclesWeekly.com newsletter, taking this information we've gathered from the markets and applying it to real-world trading situations and learning through what the market action actually is in terms of what works with astrology in the markets. There's certainly a tradition of applying astrology to the markets, and we study that and we backtest it and we work with that in a number of ways. I've been featured in Barron's magazine a number of times, also in the Trader's World magazine, on the Commodity Classics TV program. I'm currently a regular commentator on the Traders Network radio program, which is broadcast live over radio in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas area, and then streaming on the internet. I'm also a contributor to the TraderPlanet.com website, and a regular contributor as well to the Traders Astrological Almanac. So you may have seen me in some of those places, or you may have seen some of my other publications. I've got books, DVD courses, CDs sets and CD instructional courses, lots of ebooks, and there are a number of websites that I'm represented on, much more. We have the basic stock market astrology course. I'm the author of GAN Secrets Revealed, and a number of other publications, most notably or most recently, I guess, Mercury, Money, and the Markets, available on Amazon, and I am an Amazon.com best-selling author. So that's a little bit about me here. Now, I mentioned that I've been working with Financial Cycles Weekly here for over the past quarter of a century. For the last dozen years or so, we've been very closely monitoring and tracking our model portfolio that we have at Financial Cycles Weekly. And this is our performance during those years. We have averaged a little bit shy of 36% return on investment on an annualized basis during the last dozen years. And you can see in the right-hand column here how those results have varied from year to year. We've had a couple of very outstanding years along the way. I think most notable is 2008, when the Dow was down almost 34%, the S&P 500 down 37%, and we were up using our Astro-trading techniques by a little more than 46% that year. So we were very proud of that. And of course, even last year, which was an outstandingly strong year for the market indices, really the best year since 2003, the best year in over a decade, with a 26% return for the Dow and a 29, almost 30% return for the S&P. We brought in a return of 42.62% that year. So this is just to reassure you that the techniques that we're talking about today do actually work. And over the last 8 or 10 years or so, we've put a lot of extra focus on the study of solar eclipses, and that's what we're focusing on here today. Now, my personal commitment to you and to everyone else interested in astro trading is to help other people discover the astro trading advantage for themselves, so that you can succeed in your life and you can prosper in the markets. We found this to be an enormous benefit when you integrate the astrological techniques into your trading plan. You get markedly different results. And that's what I'm all about. So that's why we keep publishing new things, having webinars, putting out ebooks, putting up websites, trying to get the word out. Of course, we also work with people on a one-on-one basis in instructional programs and in personal coaching programs for astro traders as well. So the question today that we're looking at is, why are eclipses so important? They are, in fact, a major factor in the markets. As I say, we've been studying eclipses for a number of years now, and each year we have eclipses, and before each eclipse we publish a special eclipse monograph, an eclipse report forecasting the impact of that specific solar eclipse on the markets. Now, some things to know about eclipses. Why they're important is because we can do the research work with them. And I think this is a very critical consideration to keep in mind. Solar eclipses are a great subject for our research. Because we get at least 2 of them every year, we can go back and do the historical backtesting with this data. We can look back and see exactly how the markets have responded to eclipses before, and get some general notion from that research about what we can expect again. Now, solar eclipses tend to move the markets in significant ways, and we want to add, of course, our standard caveat anytime we talk about the markets, which is that past performance is no guarantee of future results. And what you're seeing here today does not necessarily mean that it'll happen again or at all ever. But we do find that it gives us a sharper edge with a greater level of reliability when we look at this. So our experience has been, through our studies, that eclipses do connect with markets in a variety of significant ways. Now, this is a chart for the S&P 500. Going back over the last a few years here. The left side of this chart is May of 2007. So you can see that we've had a number of eclipse iterations during that time frame. And what we'll note here, we've marked each eclipse. These are weekly bars, by the way, so we can get a lot on one screen here. With the weekly price bars for the S&P, we've noted those weeks when there were solar eclipses and what happened to the markets at those times. Now, you can see here that we don't always get major turning points, a trend reversal on an eclipse. Sometimes it's an acceleration, and we add an extra bounce to a move and a little extra energy to a move in the markets. Some eclipses do, however, coincide very strongly with specific turning points in the markets. And so essentially here we have enough level of correspondence to say, hey, this is something worth looking at. It's not by itself the sole predictor of market behavior, but it gives us useful information, and that's what we're interested in with our work here today. Now, as we look at the S&P, we can get a fairly typical picture of the way the broad markets will respond to solar eclipses. Now, as you probably know, there's a certain level of correspondence between market indices. In other words, if the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up on a given trading day, the S&P is also likely to be up. Sometimes we find the divergences between the indices, and this is always something that gives us additional information in assessing the trading opportunities. But for the most part, we find some levels of correspondence between market indices as long as what's being indexed has some similarity to it. We may not always find a correlation between the Sensex in Mumbai and the S&P on a given day. One may be up and the other may be down, for example. But within a certain geographic area, typically we'll get that level of correspondence. So what we find with eclipses then is that we will, with just about any market we look at, find some kind of correspondence going on with the eclipses, but the particular correspondence does not always match from market to market. So in working with eclipses then, we try to refine that approach a bit, because we've discovered that the effect of solar eclipses can sometimes be even stronger when we look at individual equities. Now, I should point out here that most of our work here at FinancialCyclesWeekly.com is in the arena of individual equities, because what we're trying to do is educate individual and small-scale traders to the Astro-trading advantage and help them kind of work between the cracks in the market environment, so to speak, in order to gain that advantage so that they can profit from it individually. We have discovered that working with individual equities will often offer us the kind of scalable opportunities that work best for that audience. And because of that, we put a lot of work and research into individual equities, and we've discovered that there are some individual stocks that respond very, very strongly to eclipses. Now, this is Apple Computer. Again, we have weekly price bars here on this particular chart. And in this case, I think you can see how strong the correspondences actually are between very, very significant turning points in the futures of Apple, or the fortune of Apple Computer, corresponding with solar eclipses. Now, we don't have a chart here that's entirely current. We prepared this chart a few days ago, and of course this doesn't show the big gap upward in Apple and the strong move that it made based on its earnings report, and also some other factors astrologically that were going on. So we'll be watching this stock pretty closely here during this coming week with the next solar eclipse, to see how Apple responds to this particular eclipse impact. Again, not every time we have an eclipse do we get a profound trend reversal in Apple, but it's definitely worth paying attention to with this stock. And of course, this is just one example. There are many, many other stocks as well that we find respond well to eclipses, and we pay a lot of attention to them when eclipses come around like this. Now, solar eclipses happen infrequently enough that we can prepare well for the trading opportunities that come with each eclipse. Now, this is in contrast to the statement we made a few minutes ago that we have enough of them happening, at least 2 a year, so that we have some data to work with in our backtesting. We can go back, a number of decades in market history and see in general how something responds to eclipse energies. But the fact that we only have about 2 of them a year means that we can take the time to do this detailed analysis before each eclipse. If this was something that were happening every week or every other day in the markets, we wouldn't be able to prepare in-depth research on each occurrence and do the kind of detailed analysis that we find so helpful in working with the Astro-trading advantage. So this is another reason why we think eclipses are important here, because they're infrequent enough as well as frequent enough. They're frequent enough to give us the back testing, infrequent enough to allow us to do the research and to come up with some usable results. Now, the thing to understand here is that even though we have eclipses occurring on a regular basis, each solar eclipse is also unique unto itself in various ways. Now, we won't go into all those distinctions here today as to what makes eclipses unique, but suffice it to say that these unique properties of eclipses, they occur at different places on the globe in terms of their visibility. They occur in different signs and positions in the zodiac in terms of their location, different times of the year. There are other planetary alignments going on at the time of the eclipse that become important as well. So each one, even though there are these repeating patterns that we work with, each one is a special case scenario. And that's why it's so important to do the kind of work that we do with the in-depth research, to give you this expert knowledge so that you can do the advanced planning for eclipse trading. And that's why we're talking here today on the week prior to the occurrence of this big solar eclipse. So, what's so special about this particular eclipse that's coming up this next week? I think that's the real reason we're gathered here today, is to try to get a sense of that and how it works in the markets. Now, as I mentioned, we do a lot of detailed research. This has resulted this time in this newly published ebook. It's 111 pages. It's packed with charts and diagrams, lots of commentary, market forecasts, month-by-month analysis of market trends, and it's loaded with eclipse activation dates and other material that you just won't find anywhere else. We have it published as an ebook so that it's available as an instant download. And you can get your copy, if you haven't done so already, at http://bit.ly/eclipse1404. That's a capital E, everything else is lowercase, and 1404 for 2014, the 4th month. So I'm trying to make it easy to remember there. But at bit.ly/eclipse1404, you'll get a page that describes this in some more detail, and there's a link there to an order page so that you can get a copy and download it instantly. We encourage you to do so. I mean, there's far more information, obviously, in 111 written pages than we can cover in our time together in a webinar. And you'll find this to be a valuable resource tool, not only for understanding this eclipse next week, but a lot of it focuses on the long-range effects of the eclipse as well. So let's talk about this specific eclipse. This is an annular eclipse. What that means is it has kind of a ring of fire effect. And this is a factor of the alignment between the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun that creates the eclipse. And sometimes the alignment is precise, and we have the light of the Sun blocked out totally by the ring of the Moon, or the sphere of the Moon, and that in that case we call it a total eclipse because it's totally blocked out. In this case, it's an annular eclipse. The Moon lines up precisely over the Sun, but the edges of the Sun kind of peek out behind it, so that if you're in exactly the right place on Earth at the time to view it when it happens, it gives you a kind of a ring of fire. There's a dark circle in the middle of the Sun with the the light of the sun peeking out from behind the edges of the moon, a very, very spectacular sight. Now, this will occur at 2:14 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's New York City time on Tuesday, April 29th. Now, note, of course, that at 2:14 a.m. is the middle of the night with a solar eclipse. That's an eclipse of the sun. We don't get to see the sun in the middle of the night, so this will not be visible then in North America or in any area in the Western Hemisphere. So that's something to keep in mind. Don't expect to go out on April 29th and look up into the sky and see the sun go black. That won't happen for us in the U.S. Or even in Western Europe. So where is this happening? Let's take a look at this particular map of the eclipse path here. Now, because this is an annular eclipse, we don't have an exact shadow of totality. We have to have a total eclipse to give us a specific line under which we will have the sun completely blacked out. As I say, we still get this ring of fire effect along the eclipse path here. But what we've indicated on this map is the area in which a partial eclipse will be visible. Now, this center line going from top to bottom cuts right through the middle of Australia, and that will be the area at which we are most likely to see the annular eclipse effect, the ring of fire effect. And then as we move away from that into southern Australia and into Indonesia to the north and down into Antarctica, we get additional partial eclipse effects. Now, note here at the bottom of the diagram in Antarctica. This is kind of a weird view of the world, and we're trying to focus on this southern Indian Ocean area here. And I misspoke a moment ago. I was saying that that ring of fire effect will be most visible there. Actually, it is in this area in Antarctica which we get the strongest eclipse effect. Everything else becomes a partial eclipse effect with varying degrees of that as we move farther away from the eclipse zone itself. But of course this covers all of the Australian continent in terms of the partial eclipse effect. It also impacts New Zealand to the southeast there on this map of Australia, and that whole archipelago in Indonesia as well. So all of those are areas that are directly under the path of the eclipse. Now, if we happen to be in those areas, if you're going to Antarctica next Tuesday, you can look up in the sky and see a very spectacular eclipse effect. There are, of course, scientists who will be there specifically for the purpose of photographing the eclipse and recording its effects from that viewpoint. But what we're looking at here is the effect of the eclipse around the globe. And we notice here on this diagram, going from the Antarctic continent, one of these meridian lines going upward, and if you'll notice, it heads straight up toward Sri Lanka and southern India there. This line extends all the way through the Indian subcontinent up into the Himalayas, then across the top of the globe, all the way down the other side, coming through Canada, across the North Pole, and down through the Midwest in the U.S. Also. So we get, by implication, an extension of the eclipse effect there. This is a little more complicated than we can go into in great detail today, and we don't want to overwhelm you with the technical details about the eclipse, but we want to have a sense of where this is taking place. Now, the important thing to understand about this is that solar eclipses not only have an effect on the date of the eclipse. This is a very, very critical thing to understand. They, of course, have a residual effect for many, many months afterwards, sometimes a period of a couple of years after the eclipse, and also for some months prior to the eclipse. Before the eclipse occurs, the shadow is in effect. And this sounds like mysterious mumbo jumbo. We are used to thinking in terms of cause and effect, with always the cause preceding the effect in time, and our minds tend to work that way. But with eclipses, what we have found is that the effects sometimes appear after the cause, or the cause sometimes appears after the effect, and that's the case with solar eclipses. We start looking for these geographic areas that are under stress at the time of the eclipse. We start looking for the zodiacal positions that are in play during the eclipse, and we can begin to identify certain times and places when we are likely to have challenges that are directly related to the occurrence of the eclipse. And this has certainly happened prior to this solar eclipse coming up next week. We noted, of course, with our map here that the southern Indian Ocean is in play, and in a very, very big way with this eclipse path. And of course, over the last couple of months now, there's been intense media attention given to that part of the globe with the missing airliner that went down somewhere in the Pacific, or excuse me, in the Indian Ocean, in the southern Indian Ocean. And we keep getting reports that, well, they've discovered some wreckage. No, that wasn't wreckage. Maybe this was it. Maybe it's that. Have they found the black box? Have they not found the black box? So it's been a very mysterious kind of thing. I'm thinking that once we get past this eclipse date, we may begin to see some actual resolution and conclusions about what actually went on there. Maybe, maybe not, but it's certainly been an area of focused attention at that particular part of the globe, unlike anything else we've seen recently anywhere else. I mean, there certainly have been missing planes and air disasters and whatnot, but the degree to which there has been media attention given to that specific part of the globe is quite unusual. Now, we mentioned a moment ago, too, that central line on the eclipse, that meridian line, which puts the eclipse kind of at the noonday position, if you will, goes up into the Indian subcontinent. It extends up near Kathmandu, Nepal. And that, in fact, is where we find Mount Everest, the tallest peak in the world. And about 10 days ago or so, we had that catastrophe there, or a disaster. We won't call it a catastrophe, but it certainly was noteworthy tragedy when I think there were, 13 Sherpas that lost their lives in a mountaineering accident. What was unusual, of course, was that these were all the Sherpas, the native guides that are quite experienced on those slopes of Mount Everest, and also it was the largest death toll in a single accident on Mount Everest ever recorded. So it was quite a noteworthy event. Again, a direct correlation to this solar eclipse before the eclipse happened. So we won't belabor the point there, but we do want to keep this in mind, that we are already seeing the effects of the eclipse before it has taken place. So let's talk about what the potential effects of this specific eclipse are in various areas. And we can look at that in terms of our personal stress, in terms of the geopolitical stress, and then the economic and market stress. These are the three main areas that we're concerned about in working with this solar eclipse. Now, the fact is, well, let's take a look at the horoscope chart for the eclipse itself. Again, this is April 29th, 2014. We've set this chart for New York City because with most of our financial work, we focus on that specific location at 2:14 and 19 seconds a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we note here at the bottom of the chart wheel the moon and the sun. The moon is a little crescent symbol there with the sun, a circle with a dot in it, both at 8 degrees of the sign of Taurus. This is the eclipse point in this chart. Now, the other striking thing about this chart, of course, is that we've had this big pattern, which we've called the Cardinal Grand Cross, that has occurred just this past week. And its exact lineup here, and it's still very, very much in orb The triggering factor here that created the Grand Cross pattern was Mars, which is up at in the upper right-hand area of the chart, the circle with a little arrow coming out of it. Here, Mars at 11 degrees of Libra. It was at 13 degrees Libra when it lined up with Pluto at 13 Capricorn, with Jupiter at 13 Cancer. Jupiter's now moved up to 14 Cancer, and with Uranus at 13 Aries, and it is still at 13 Aries. So this pattern is still very much in play at the time of the eclipse. This gives this particular solar eclipse an enormous level of additional impact, a lot of extra stress coming out of this specific eclipse occurrence. It's one of the reasons why we're giving it so much attention, paying close attention to the opportunities that it presents, because under times of maximum stress, we get the biggest divergences in the market environment, the biggest opportunities for us as individual astro traders. But let's look at the kinds of stress we connect with the eclipse. We said a moment ago that one of the areas that we're concerned about with this eclipse is the area of personal stress. And that is certainly something we pay close attention to around the time of the eclipse. Now, the obvious thing is if you've got a birthday on April 29th, you're going to feel a lot of personal stress around this eclipse. Also, if it's April 27th, 28th, April 30th, May 1st, all of these birthdays come under a lot of assault, shall we say, from the stress of the eclipse, because they're in tight proximity to that alignment of the eclipse. The sun in your personal horoscope is going to be impacted. Now, we will find this personal stress expressing in a variety of ways. Again, this depends on the individual involved. It may impact your employment, your business, or your job situation. It can certainly have an impact on health matters, particularly if your health has been under stress already. The eclipse may exacerbate that in various ways. It can definitely have an impact on relationships, because in a relationship, we're looking not only at what happens with my natal chart, but also the natal chart of my partner, whether it's a marriage partner, business partner, a customer I'm trying to deal with, whatever the relationship is about, then it's impacting both of our charts, and so we kind of double the opportunity for stressful dynamics related to the eclipse. And of course, there are financial implications as well. A lot depends, again, on how this eclipse lines up with your natal horoscope. If you're an experienced astrologer, we encourage you to take the chart for the eclipse and look at it in detail and compare those eclipse positions then to your natal chart, and you can gain a lot from that a little bit of study. That's something that any professional astrologer or astrologer with a lot of experience has done with comparing charts in the past, I'm sure. And so it's the set of tools that you would want to begin with. Of course, if you're not a professional astrologer or don't have the experience, then you may want to consult with an astrologer around this time frame, just to do the evaluation of the potential impact for you personally. And a good astrologer will help you work through specific strategies for managing that situation at a personal level as well. So know your natal chart, in other words, in determining the potential impact for you in this arena of personal stress associated with the eclipse. Now, all of these factors that we just mentioned, the financial, the relationships, the employment, the health matters, all of them can, of course, impact your performance as a trader. If I'm feeling ill, if I've got serious health problems, if I'm fatigued or distracted, or if I've just had a big argument with my spouse and I sit down to try to trade, then I'm going to be off my game. It's as simple as that. So when we find these times piling up on us as individual traders, we might want to consider taking a break from trading. Now, I'm not recommending that all traders stay away from the markets at the time of solar eclipses. That borders on superstition, and we don't want to generalize on that basis. But we do recommend doing the analysis to determine where are the areas of potential stress for you, and how can you best work with that in the markets. Now, we want to mention this offer that we have available here. And this is right in line with knowing your natal chart. What I do personally is I work with a limited number of astro traders on a regular basis in providing coaching programs. We've got some group instructional programs as well. And one of the things connected with that service is that I try to get to a limited number of individuals to provide them with a free astro trading strategy session. Now, this has a couple purposes. What we're doing during that session, by the way, is spending about 45 minutes to an hour together. We get together either over the phone or by Skype. If you happen to be in the Southwest Florida and can arrange a visit to my office, you're always welcome to do this in person. And those are wonderful when we can line things up that way. Essentially, this is a $1,500 consultation. That's what my fee is for a regular consultation with a new client. And we waive that cost in order to do a little extra digging for you. And it has a couple of purposes, as I say. The first is to look at your natal chart and your experiences in the market and do an analysis of that to determine the best trading strategies and approaches for you. Should you be trading at all in the first place is one of those questions that we ask, and in some cases the answer is definitely not. Stay away from it. In other cases, you may be trading the wrong thing or having the wrong kind of trading style. So that strategy session is designed to help fine-tune your approach to the trading. At the same time, you have an opportunity to find out what we have available in terms of ongoing instructional and coaching programs to see whether or not there's a good fit for you. Again, sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. If it's something that works for you, I can welcome the opportunity to connect with you on an ongoing basis, then to give you more guidance as a part of one of our coaching or instructional programs. And if not, there's certainly no obligation with the strategy session. We may determine that, hey, this is not a good fit, and glad we had the time together. Thank you and goodbye. So at any rate, we don't want to belabor that, but the thing that we want to be aware of here is during this coming 30 days, I've got a lot on my plate. I've got to do a good bit of traveling. So on my calendar right now, I've got room for 4 of these strategy sessions during the next 30 days. And this does require a brief online application. You can find that and connect with it at bit.ly/strategy bonus with a capital S and capital B. If you're typing it all in, it's http://bit.ly. That's a misprint there on the screen. At any rate, check that out if you're interested in doing that. And then, as I say, there's a brief application form to make sure that we've got a good fit in terms of spending the 45 minutes to an hour together, because there are a limited number of those available. At any rate, let's move on now from the personal stress area, and there are means, of course, of addressing that personal stress, to the geopolitical stress that we can expect as a result of this solar eclipse coming up next week. And in doing this, what we do is we take a chart for a geopolitical entity. In this case, it's a chart for the USA, and we position the eclipse around this chart. This is a chart that my colleague Jim Cummins likes to use. It is at the 2:21 p.m. Local mean time chart for Philadelphia on the 4th of July, 1776 for the USA. When we use that chart, we note here on the right-hand side of the wheel that the solar eclipse at 8 degrees of Taurus coincides with the descendant, an important angle in the inception chart, the birth chart for the USA. This area in the first trade or in the birth chart for the USA is all about dealings with other countries. It is the area of what we call open enemies, those who would oppose us in various ways, and also our allies come into play. So who's an enemy, who's an ally, what happens in international relations? This is obviously a very, very critical area to be examining right now. even as we speak, we've got some real questions at play in terms of the U.S. relationship with Japan, the U.S. relationship with Israel, and of course those areas where there's more open conflict and tensions, like the Soviet Union and Ukraine and what have you. So all this comes into play in a very, very big way for the U.S., and we can tell that right off the bat by looking at just the position of the eclipse vis-a-vis this horoscope for the U.S. This is going to be about international relations and who's an enemy, who's an ally, not only on April 29th, but over at least the next 6 months or so until we get to the next solar eclipse, and quite possibly longer than that as we move forward. So one of the areas that we're really proud of in terms of analyzing what happens in geopolitics is due to the work of my good friend and colleague Jim Cummins, who for the last several months now has been a regular contributor to FinancialCyclesWeekly.com. If you're a member there, you read, I'm sure, his articles that he has published in his Big Picture Perspectives series of articles analyzing global situations from the perspectives of astrology. We take a look at that in a financial newsletter because we find that the global politics have an impact on commodities prices, on international stress, and on the action of the markets as well. And oftentimes there'll be severe market reactions to situations that come up in geopolitics. So we keep an eye on that. Jim does a lot of that work for us and publishes articles with brilliant research behind them. His most recent one is entitled Bookends of Time, and we mention that one specifically because he's focusing a lot on the solar eclipse coming up and some of the dynamics geopolitically around that. A good analysis there of Vladimir Putin and what's going on with Putin and what's happening with Japan and China and Israel and Iran and a number of other areas covered in that one article. So if you're a member at FinancialCyclesWeekly.com, we'd recommend that you look in the Big Picture Perspectives section in the members area and read that article of Bookends of Time by Jim Cummins, because it details, in a lot more detail than we can go into here today, the potential for geopolitical stress. Now, we have also geocosmic stress occurring, and we look into this zone defined by these areas of the eclipse path and the area of the partial eclipse. Certainly with the activation along that eastern coast of Australia and going up into the southeastern Asia area, we have an activation of what we call the Ring of Fire, not the solar eclipse Ring of Fire, but the Ring of Fire in the Pacific Basin, referring to the areas of seismic fault and the occurrence of volcanoes and earthquakes along that Pacific Rim area. We expect a lot more activity coming up as a result of this solar eclipse. And in addition to that, we have a lot of material in this new report, the new monograph on the solar eclipse of April 2014, its impact on the markets, on the impact on a variety of countries and the hot spots around the globe that we need to be paying attention to. I think they can inform your trading in some remarkable ways and give you some insights here that you can apply to the markets. And again, we have a limited amount of time to be able to go into all the details that you'll find there in that new report. So let's talk about economic and market stress, because this is the primary area that we are interested in, after all, when we look at this solar eclipse. What's going on with the markets? What can we expect in these areas? Now, we can look at markets in a variety of ways. This is a chart here using the 90-degree dial for the COMEX gold chart, for the beginning of trading with COMEX gold. And the pointer here on the 90-degree dial, that red pointer you see on the bottom, is the position of the solar eclipse. And we can see with the chart for COMEX gold that it activates things fairly strongly for us, in that specific area. Now, we also look at a variety of other financial charts. This is just an example of how we do this kind of analysis as we look at a variety of commodities and precious metals and other things. So what we see here is that the eclipse is hitting the midpoint of the moon and admetos in this horoscope. And so we may see, I think, a swell of more of larger scale trading in gold, and a real lack of interest now from the retail level, especially at these price levels, with this kind of configuration. Admetos tends to put restrictions on situations and shut things down. The gold is the moon rather is symbolic of the public as well. Now, there are other midpoints that are triggered here in the chart. We go into more explanation with this overall. But this is adding up to what we would call a generally bullish picture for gold. And certainly that has not been much the case in recent trading activity. And there's some good cause for caution here. We have the Uranus ascendant midpoint triggered here as well by the solar eclipse, and that typically will indicate greater volatility. So we're going to be paying attention to gold here during the coming weeks, especially for bigger price moves. But we're looking at this as contributing to a potential buying opportunity for gold. Now, it's interesting here because I've had members and clients talk to me in recent weeks about how to trade gold specifically. We've discussed some individual gold mining stocks. There are those who are buying gold futures, and some that are after the physical metal as well. And so depending on your individual circumstances, you may want to work with some of that, and certainly that's part of what we do here at FinancialCyclesWeekly.com. We look at the specific trading strategies that are best for you as an individual, and that's one of the things that we discuss when we have one of those one-on-one astro-trading strategy sessions that we mentioned a few minutes ago. Now, we've also included some work here in our new Eclipse report on Bitcoin, and we won't go into detail with Bitcoin here other than to say that the horoscope for the initial Bitcoin proposal is the one that we like to use here with Bitcoin. There have been various trading events with it, and scandals and bankruptcies and all kinds of things. It's had quite an interesting and convoluted history in its short life, and we don't have enough confirmed trading data over a long enough period of time to be able to say specifically with a high level of certainty the impact of various transits on the Bitcoin. But just looking at this chart suggests that we're going to see a much wider interest in Bitcoin and a good bit of expansion in the market for Bitcoin over the coming months. Again, you'll find the details there in the report on the solar eclipse of April 2014. And I wanted to include that here today simply because we can apply these same principles at a lot of levels. We also look, for example, at the chart for the NASDAQ and for the Federal Reserve and a number of other charts in determining our economic and market forecasts. But we can also take something that almost call Bitcoin an outlier here. I mean, we're not condemning it or endorsing it one way or the other here. We're simply looking at it as one of those economic and financial entities that has made some news, so we want to pay attention to it in the light of the eclipse. And it looks like this is a very, very interesting time for Bitcoin based on the impact of this April 29th solar eclipse. Now, this is the Japanese yen, which also comes under a lot of action from this solar eclipse. We get the midpoint of Pluto and Apollon activated. So this is a very, very positive indicator for the yen. We again find an activation of the ascendant and Uranus here in this chart as well, which suggests a lot of potential volatility in the yen, and also the Jupiter Zeus midpoint is activated, suggesting some very positive trends in trading for the yen. So this is one of those areas that we'll want to pay attention to if we're involved in any kind of forex trading, any kind of currency speculation at all, or looking at relations with Japan, or dealing with Japanese manufacturing in any way. Then you're going to want to take the yen into consideration in your personal planning and your market strategies. Now, this is a chart for the RIDEX currency shares. Japanese yen trust trades under the symbol FXY. This is an ETF that relates to the yen specifically, so we thought it would be interesting to track this. And in this case, we've just flagged the solar eclipses here, and again, we've seen some pretty interesting dynamics. In many cases, a sell-off right after an eclipse. Now, the yen has come down enormously, especially since this last eclipse. And we go back, 2 eclipses ago, back to May of 2013. Or no, I'm sorry, this was the one in, looks like November of 2012, was before the big decline in the yen. And that one was a major trigger for a move down in the value of the yen. And since then, we've seen a more congested trading range. Based on what we're seeing with these planetary aspects activated at the time of the eclipse with the yen, we would expect some bullishness coming into the picture, but the eclipse itself may institute a further pullback, and we'll find speculators in the yen throwing in the towel quite vehemently at that point for more aggressive traders who are a little less risk adverse. This could be an incredible buying opportunity for the yen, so we want to be keeping an eye on this. If you're involved in any currency pairs that include the yen, pay attention to the solar eclipse. So I think this gives you an idea of what we're looking at then with some of the market indicators. Again, one of our big points of focus is dealing with individual equities, and we'll talk more about those in just a moment here. Suffice it to say that what we're looking at here with this analysis is trying to determine the broader economic trends, the broader market trends, first of all, and then we fine-tune on that basis. So in this new eclipse report, the solar eclipse of April 2014, what we are looking at here is not only these various market indices, but we also look at key commodities, the yen, of course, and dealing with the currency situation, and as well as gold. We look at silver, we look at London gold as well as COMEX gold. We look at soybeans and consider a variety of other markets as well. So all that's included, and then in addition to that, we try to prepare, we do prepare and include a month-by-month forecast. We try to be accurate, I should say that. We try to be accurate with our forecast, but we do prepare it and include it in our monograph on the solar eclipse of April 2014. So for month by month through the remainder of this calendar year, based on the activations of the eclipse through its lunar returns, we have an idea of what we can expect from the market action. And then in addition to that, we have specific calendar days that we identify, and we have more than 150 separate activations based on this solar eclipse that we've come up with there to pinpoint days in the market when you'll want to be paying extra attention to the trading environment. Now, there are 150 here because some days have multiple activations. So it's not every day, and there are some periods when you get very few of those activations occurring, so it's important to know when they occur as well. So that's something to consider. If you've got the copy of this report already, then you'll want to refer to those pages on those eclipse activation dates. starts on page 94. I think it runs 5 or 6 pages, 94 through 98. In that eclipse report, you'll find that list of those specific eclipse activations that we'll be keeping an eye on. And let's talk finally here about how we trade with eclipses. I promised you that we would discuss something that you could use not only in conjunction with this eclipse, but in general with other eclipses as well. Now, we have devised this eclipse trading methodology over a number of years based on our experience in the markets trying to fine-tune our approach to trading with eclipses. We could identify the fact that some stocks respond very strongly to eclipses, as we showed you with the stock for Apple. That's certainly the case in many instances, and when it is, we like to pay attention to that. But here's our strategy that we work with. It's basically, there are 4 steps involved here. First of all, we identify those stocks whose first trade horoscopes, that's the horoscope set for the time the stock was first offered on the market, include the position of the sun that conjoins the upcoming eclipse. We mentioned a little earlier here in talking about the personal horoscopes and said if you were born on April 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, May 1st, somewhere in that time frame on any year, you're going to be impacted quite strongly by the eclipse. Why? Because the sun in your personal chart, your natal horoscope, is going to be impacted very directly by the eclipse. And that's what we're looking for with stocks here. Basically, we're looking for stocks that began trading on April 27th through about May 1st of any calendar year. And we kind of filter through all of our records there to identify those stocks. Then we apply additional filters. And this is something we do on a weekly basis with all of our stock picks for FinancialCyclesWeekly.com, is that we look at the fundamentals involved with the stocks we're considering. We look at the technical picture. We like to see that there's sufficient trading volume, et cetera, et cetera. And we have a number of factors that we use in filtering this scan or this selection of stocks with first trade suns that are being hit by the eclipse. We want to filter that for the viability of actually trading them, because if we have something that is very, very thinly traded, only 100 shares a day, then it's not going to give us much of an opportunity to move effectively in the market. So it's common sense there to a large extent. So what we're doing then with those stocks that we filtered down, and typically we end up with 4 or 5 of them for any given eclipse period, we will buy those stocks when there's a price pullback immediately following the eclipse. Now, sometimes this will happen on the date of the eclipse itself. Sometimes we'll wait almost 2 weeks in terms of 8 or 10 trading days before this will happen. But we always look for a price pullback. And sometimes it's a big one, sometimes it's a small one, but that gives us an indication that the eclipse is having an effect. That's when we take a long position in that stock. And typically what will happen then is the stock will rebound within beginning a day or 2 or so after that pullback. And as it does so, then we trail a stop for our trade. And with a long position, as it continues to move up, then we trail that stock, that price for as long as the trade remains viable, and we let the market take us out of the trade when that trend reverses. Sometimes it'll go for just a couple of days, sometimes longer, but in most cases we can lock in a profit with that. We found this to be a very, very successful strategy. So let's use an example here. In this case, we're looking back at the last eclipse because we can't give you the trading results of the eclipse coming up next week yet. So this was the last time we worked with one, which was in November 3rd, 2013. There was a hybrid solar eclipse. In this case, you'll note the eclipse over on the left side of the diagram at 11 degrees of Scorpio, and the big pattern there, of course, the green triangle in the middle is a grand trine. We won't get into a detailed analysis of what was going on with that particular solar eclipse, because what we're interested in here is looking at its impact on a couple of stocks. And we'll use a couple of examples here to show you how this eclipse trading strategy works in the real world. Here's that solar eclipse, the hybrid solar eclipse of November 3rd. On the outer ring and the inner ring here is the first trade horoscope for a company called Famous Dave's. Famous Dave's of America Incorporated, traded on the NASDAQ. Symbol is DAVE, and Famous Dave's began trading here on November 4th, 1996. Now, the eclipse was November 3rd, 2013, so again, we see this similarity of date. In this case, the first trade sun for Famous Dave's is at 12 degrees of Scorpio. The eclipse was at 11 and change, 11 3/4 of Scorpio, so to speak. And so we have a pretty tight configuration there. So that's our starting point here. We also like to examine these charts on the 90-degree dial. In this case, here's the position of the eclipse signaled by the red arrow. And we note down here at the bottom, the sun there, the circle, orange circle with the dot in it, is the sun in that first trade horoscope. So we want to see that. If it doesn't hit it exactly, it should be close to it. And then we see the midpoints in this chart that were triggered as well. We found enough action going on here to consider it as a trading candidate. Now, at the time we were looking at this, just before this November eclipse, this is what the trading chart for Famous Dave's looked like. As you can see, it had gone through a long basing period, and it just had a bit of a breakout from that. It was consolidating within that breakout pattern. So this supported some assumptions about taking a long position in this stock. We wouldn't be unhappy with that anyway. What we were looking for, though, was that price pullback to enter the trade. And here's how that turned out. We had the eclipse coming in on the 3rd of November. We got this big down bar, as you can see here, on an intraday basis. That was our signal. It hit our price point for an initial purchase. We had put in a limit order based on the trading there. We bought Famous Dave's at $18.25 on the 8th of November, after the eclipse on the 3rd. And then we held it until the 20th of November, and we had trailed the stop a couple of times at that point, and we were stopped out at $19.50. So this was a gain of $1.25, but for an $8 stock, this represented a 6.85% profit. We gained that in just 8 days exposure in the markets. We weren't unhappy with that kind of trading result, and this is typical in many cases of what we will see with solar eclipse trades. Sometimes it's a loss, but over 95% of the time we've found this to be a workable strategy, and in some cases the gains are small with it as well. The other stock we wanted to illustrate here today was Americo, which is traded on the NASDAQ. Symbol is UHAL. These are the folks that have the U-Haul trailers. The company is called Americo. And their first trade date was November 3rd, 1994, coinciding, of course, with the November 3rd eclipse. And we see the first trade sun here at 10 degrees and change of Scorpio, 1056, so it's barely shy of that 11-degree mark of the eclipse itself. That eclipse is actually at 11:15, so 11 degrees 1 1/4 of a degree. So this is the alignment there that caused us to identify this as a trading candidate. We looked at it on the first trade chart as well. And here's what's interesting: as we look at this, we didn't see right off the bat the coincidence of the moon. What the 90-degree dial does is show us the impact on some planetary configurations within the horoscope as well. So not only do we have the pointer of the eclipse hitting the sun, but also the moon in the first trade horoscope, as well as activating, you'll notice at the top here, the MCAS, that's the midheaven and the ascendant in the first trade chart. That axis is also amplified by the eclipse. A very, very powerful combination. We like the looks of that one very, very much. And then in looking at the chart, there was no question about a bullish pattern in place for UHAL, for Americo, at the time that we were considering trading it for an eclipse. And in fact, we had just seen a little bit of a pullback already in place. We didn't know at this point whether the eclipse would trigger a much stronger one or whether we have to be looking for a very small move. But as it turned out, we did get a little bit of a bounce, right at the eclipse, and then it pulled back again. Very interesting reaction there. But that gave us an opportunity to buy on the 6th of November, after the eclipse on November 3rd. We bought at $205 even. It's a little higher price stock than Famous Dave's. We held this until the 26th of November and sold at $223 even. So this gain then was an 8.78% profit based on holding this stock for 14 days of market exposure. So again, these examples are examples from the last time that we were doing our Eclipse trades. These were featured, or we featured these results in this current Eclipse report, and you can examine that the details there a little bit more closely as to how we move the stops and how we worked with these trades. There were a couple of other trades that we had that also produced positive results, but again, these are not necessarily typical. It doesn't mean that you can necessarily duplicate this kind of return with every trade yourself, or at all. Past results are no guarantee of future results. So we want to add that caveat when we can. Okay, here's a recap again of this Eclipse trading strategy. You want to have this in your notes for sure, because we found that it works very, very solidly, and we're very pleased to be able to share that with you today. I think you'll find it useful every time there's a solar eclipse that comes up for you to work with. Now, we promised a free gift for you, and we do in fact have one. We mentioned earlier this article that Jim Cummins had done, Bookends of Time, about the solar eclipse effects in the market in terms of the geopolitics. We prepared that as a PDF file that you can download without being a member at Financial Cycles Weekly. It's previously been available only to our members, but it's a 20-page PDF. You can get it at bit.ly/JC, capital J, capital C, 1404, and that will get you your copy of the free 20-page PDF file for the article there on Bookends of Time. In addition to that, we've got an opportunity for you. We mentioned earlier this, and we'll want to repeat this. I noticed here I've just had a chance to check this. We've had 2 of those 4 slots already taken. People have at least submitted the applications. Assuming those applications are okayed, then we've got 2 applications in for those 4 slots. So that means we do have 2 open for the next few weeks, and we encourage you to go ahead and apply for that if you're interested at all in having one of these sessions. It is a free session. You do need to apply, however, ahead of time. Let me say this: if we get more than we can handle in terms of these 4 sessions for this month, we'll put you on a waiting list, and we'll let you know when it may be possible to schedule a time with you. So go ahead and express your interest there if you'd like to at bit.ly/strategy bonus with capital S, capital B. And then finally, of course, we do have the Eclipse report, the solar eclipse of April 2014, its impact on the markets, available at bit.ly/eclipse 1404, capital E there, everything else lowercase. That's available as an instant download, and we do have it now at a discounted price prior to the eclipse. I think it's $30 off retail. I'm not sure what it is right now. I'd have to double check that. But at any rate, we do have a special discount for you. With this new Eclipse report, if you order this today, you can save an additional 10% off the already discounted price. If you use this coupon code during the checkout process, you'll be asked to fill in the order information as normal, of course, and then during the checkout screen there, as you work through that, it will ask, do you have a coupon code? At that point, put in WEB10, capital WEB, Web10 is the coupon code to use for an additional 10% off, which is taken off the order automatically at that point. So we encourage you to get that as an instant download and get all the facts on this big solar eclipse that we've got coming up on April 29th. So we want to wish you all the best results in your Astro-trading, your highest levels of success, especially with this solar eclipse and with your trading in general. And we know we've had a lot of information to throw at you here today, but appreciate very, very much you're taking time to join us for this session today. Hope to see you again real soon. Check us out at financialcyclesweekly.com. We do have a lot of great resources there available for you as well, and would welcome you as a part of one of our membership programs. So do take a look at that. This is Tim Boss with financialcyclesweekly.com. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great evening and have a great solar eclipse, everybody. We'll talk with you soon.